Hey, this is Chan from DifferenceInSkill, bringing you another deck profile as promised by me. The new deck, Aqua Force, of course, you guys all wanted to look for that. And every day of the week, every day, I will post a deck profile until I have nothing new to post. So, which will probably be around 3 more, I think. 3? 4 maybe? 3, I think. 3, yeah. Okay, so onto the deck profile. So first, starting Vanguard. Cadet Eric. He is okay, I guess. He's better than the other ones, and your level 3s are very important to you, so whichever level 3 you get, I'm sure it'll be useful. Hopefully. So, yeah, simple soul charge. Look at the top 5 for a level 3 and add it to your hand. For stand triggers, normally I would not run stand triggers in anything, but in this deck, some cards benefit from being the 4th or more attack, so stand triggers are quite useful. And at the same time, since your deck is attacking many times for low amounts, you can add more to that by having these. Now, since if you have crits, that means you have something for them to perfect guard. Now, if your power is around 15, like 15, 16, they perfect guard it, that's great. They used way too many resources for you. But if you have a strong attack, say like 21 with crit 2, that's perfect guard bait right there. Now in your deck, they don't have anything to perfect guard except for your Vanguard. So if you have these, you're gonna either force them to perfect guard something they don't have to. Like my rear guard 10k plus 5k on the stand attacks you, perfect guard, that's great. But you know, these stand triggers, which I run 8, are very useful in Aqua Force because of how quickly they can burn through your hand with conjunction of Aqua Force. Normally, if you run just stand triggers, it's like whatever. But the reason why stand triggers work so well in this is because all of your attacks are very weak. So they're like 10, 15, 11, 13, 12, 9. And then it's like, okay, so if I have, okay, so my opponent's saying that, okay, you don't want crits. I'll just let your big attacks through, aka my Vanguard. Now, I'll explain that later, but actually I'll just pull it out now. This is my Vanguard. You want to let this hit. You want to let me draw one and destroy one of your rear guards. Go right ahead. So they have a choice of like going, okay, I'll take 1 damage and let you destroy 1 card and draw a card. Well, that's fine for me. That's fine by me in all regards. So yeah, the reason why stand triggers are pretty decent in this is that the Vanguard is not really a threat because of crit triggers. Like in other decks, at 4 damage, you're like, oh my god, the Vanguard is scary now because, well, if he gets a crit, I lose. But in this deck, it's like, oh my god, that Vanguard's scary. If it hits me, I'll lose a card and he can draw a card. Very good stuff. 4 draw. Because draw triggers are very necessary in this deck. You need to set up your field, which is why you need some draw triggers. And then, of course, 4 heals. Now, 4 heals, very standard. So, you know, love the map. It looks very suggestive this way, but when you look at the full thing, it still looks suggestive, but it's a bit better, I guess. But, anywho, on to level 1s. Tier Knight Theo, AK Beater, very useful, not much to say. 3 Battle Siren Dorothea, on the 3rd or more battle that she participates in, if she boosts your Vanguard, boost the Vanguard for 10k. Pretty simple. Very useful, pretty staple in the stack. 2 Torpedo Rush Dragon. He is a 9k booster on your 4th or more attack. So he is basically your backup to this. So because your Vanguard will most likely be the 4th or more, so you can boost him with a Vanguard, but this boost for more, but this boost for less, etc, etc. Basically, it's like another copy of Dorothea. Now, the reason why I don't have a 4th Dorothea is because I didn't want to buy another trial deck for a single Dorothea. Yeah, so putting them aside. Now this is another special card. It's the Counterblast 1, take 1 damage, and at the end of the turn, shuffle 1 damage back. So the reason why I play this is because a lot of players who play against Aqua Force, if they have like one last attack and you're at 3 damage, most likely they're going to try to kill a rear guard because they don't want to deal with Maelstrom just yet. Now, of course, that's not good enough reason to say, yeah, this card is broken in this deck. It's because, 1, the utility is nice to have that. 2, you don't really need very strong boosters in this deck since all your attacks are attacking for really weak. So all you need is like bare minimum to get through stuff, which is why low attack boosters are fine. And 3, she's hot. Yeah, that I have to. It's what I do. So as you can notice, a lot of the level 1s in this deck are 6k, which is not actually an issue, which I'll explain later. 3 perfect guards. Once again, I don't play 4 perfect guards unless my deck has good draw power, which this deck doesn't. And like draw triggers don't count as good draw power, but you could, like, if you're playing a ridiculous amount, like 8 or 12, then yeah, I guess you could run 4 perfect guards. But 4 Storm Rider Basil. Now, Storm Rider Basil, he's a special card in this deck. I will go through him after I go through other level 2s. 1 Argos. Argos' effect on his 4th or more attack, if his attack hits the Vanguard, you may draw a card. Now, I want to have 2, but I don't. So instead, I have another Lazarus, just cause. Once again, I didn't want to buy a trial deck, just for like 2 rares, so I didn't. So I have a random Lazarus for no reason. Now, I might replace this with the Coral Assault people, but we'll see. I don't know. He's pretty good behind Basil anyways, so it's fine. For Valeria, this card is a 9k. On her 4th or more attack, if she hits the Vanguard, you may retire 1 rear guard. Now, that's great. It also works in great conjunction with the stand triggers. Your opponent's at 4 damage. Alright? Your Vanguard attacked, he blocked it, you stand this, and you attack for 14. Most likely they will need only 5,000 shield, or they can take it because they're at 4. But then the downside is, well, if I hit you with this, you have to retire rear guard. So I get a plus out of nowhere because you didn't give me 5k shield. Most likely they're going to give you 5k shield unless they're going to lose to it. Like, they can't block it anyways. So, yeah, it's a good way to chip out your opponent's shield. And if not, congratulations, you got a +1 by killing a rear guard. So yeah, very good. So, on to Basil. What Basil does is, when he declares an attack, if this is the first attack of your turn, when he attacks the Vanguard, so first attack on the Vanguard this turn. So he has to attack the Vanguard, he has to attack first. He has to go first for everything. He gains 2k power, boosting up to 10k, and then he moves back. So what does it mean by move back? So say you have, let's say you have Lazarus. This is your row. It's not really a normal row, is it? It's level 2 and level 2. So you attack with Basil. At the end after your attack, regardless if you hit or not, you can swap places with the thing behind it and attack again. Now this is already 2 attacks, which means if you attack with this one and then your Vanguard, armpits, and your Vanguard has the 4th attack, which is great. So just by Basil himself, he can dish out a lot of damage because of, okay, so if your opponent has to block this, 1 card and 2 cards. 10k shield, but in 2 cards. It's good. It's good stuff. The strength of this deck comes in its attacks in numbers. Hala, so good. So good, so good. 4, Blue Storm Dragon Maelstrom. So, he is 11k. Amazing. I know, right? He's 11k. His limit break is, he only has a limit break ability, so he is completely useless aside from limit break. His limit break ability is, when you declare an attack, on your 4th or more attack, you gain 5,000 power. So he becomes 16 by himself. Now, things like Garmal, Thunderbreak Dragon, Kyriel, Cocutus, they gain 5k too. But he needs the 4th or more attack because, you know, he's 11k and all. It's really useful. So, right there, 16. Now, his secondary effect is also a limit break, it's part of the first effect, is that if his attack hits the opponent's Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, draw a card, and retire 1 of your opponent's rear guards. Now, that is great. I mean, that is one of the best Vanguard attacks on hit. It's a +2, like raw, so kill something, draw a card. The 2 of the best +2s The best way to gain advantage by killing something that was in the way, something that your opponent might need, and then drawing a card. All very good stuff. So, Blue Storm Dragon Maelstrom, I definitely would run 4. If you cannot get 4, hope you draw it. 3 Captain of the Spiral-like Waves Benedict, or just Benedict. His effect is also very unique, so for this purposes, I will take out any random level 1 from my level 1 pile, and I'll explain it. So, Benedict's effect is, if he attacks the Vanguard, he gets down. Yeah, if he attacks the Vanguard, he stands. With the cost of minus 5,000, this effect can only be used once per turn. So, it's like, like that. So he can have 2 attacks by himself, similar to Basil, except you don't need anything behind him. So you just go, like, 1, 2. Even if your attacks don't hit, or they're not even strong enough, they still count as attacks. So say you're like this, okay? You go attack for 10, attack for 5, and then he stays rested. That's fine. It works properly. So you can go attack for 10, stand, attack for 11. As I said, this deck has a lot of weak attacks. The weak attacks are good because of how many cards you can chip out of their hand. Like Basil, 10 and 6, 11. 10 and 11 both need 5k to block. In total, it was 10k, like a normal column. But they need 2 cards instead of 1. Good stuff. Benedict is really key in the deck. And 1 Stormrider Diamantis. Now, he's cool. He's the same as Basil, except he's a rare and he looks like a badass, and that's why I run him. Hell yeah. I like having him and Basil, so I have 5 Stormriders and 3 of him. So it's a it's a decent mix. Now, how good is this deck? Well, it's a deck where you gain pure advantage from attacking. Now, attacking, it's like just attacking. You gain a lot of advantage from attacking. You get 1 extra attack starting at level 2 per turn. So say your opponent attacks you once. You attack them up to 4 times. So that's either 4 damage or 4 cards from their hand. The next turn, you attack them 4 times again. 4 damage or 4 cards from their hand. You know, it's like, that's okay, whatever. Then maybe your field is really good. You get up to 5 attacks. 5 attacks. 5 cards from their hand. Right? So it builds up really quickly. So an ideal field would be this. Like, basically it's these 3. The things in the back don't matter too much, except for Dorothea. You don't have to, it's kind of overkill, but it's pretty useful. And then anything here is fine. Preferably, like, Valerie. So, preferably an attack that after you stand and you attack again, you can use an effect. If not, the strongest thing you can find, like another Maelstrom. For this purposes, we'll use her. So, attack order. You have to attack with Basil first, so that's really normal. Attack. Cool. And swap. Now, if your opponent is experienced, they will have intercepted with any 9k rearguard they have. If they don't, snipe it. Attack it. If they do, well, too bad. Well, now, you go, okay, so what if my opponent is actually a little smart, so he intercepted? Okay, so Benedict attacks by himself, 10, stand, attack with this, so it's, let's see, this is 11, so, okay, this has been 1, 2, 3 attacks. On my 4th or more attack, I declare my attack with Maelstrom, attacking with 26, blah, 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 maybe I get a trigger, maybe I don't, maybe I get a trigger, hooray, just for purposes. Say I get, draw a trigger, power plus 5k, and attack. Yeah, good stuff. So that was 5 attacks. Now, if you think your opponent's any good, or your opponent doesn't have a 9k or lower, you can intercept with this card next turn and replace it with something like Maelstrom, another Benedict. Having another Benedict doesn't really matter because his attacks don't really. Like, you can go Basil attacks, Benedict attacks again, and then you have 4 and 5. So it's kind of okay, I guess. or you can use my one Lazarus. That's why some people choose not to run so many Valerias, but I run Valeria because it's really hot, and it's also really good. Theo, Lazarus is okay, so, whatever. Aqua Rush really does, even though Torpedo Rush, this guy, even though he is, his ability does trigger in behind a rear guard and not the Vanguard, preferably I would say he is behind Vanguard material, because even as your 4th attack in the rear guard zone, the only way that you could actually benefit from that is if it was this situation, which is very, very situational, and not even that great. So your field looks like this. You go Basil attacks once, Benedict attacks twice, and for the 3rd time, and then you attack with him. So like, and then you attack with this for 20. Now I was like, okay, whatever. Who cares if you're attacking for 20? Everything attacks for 20. So, in the 9K, it's not really like, oh yeah, my attackers need the extra boost because they're weak. Well, they're not. Well, they are, but you don't really need that extra power. So, yeah. So this was a quick tutorial and a deck profile of my Aqua Force deck. Of course, there are a lot of variations. Some people run crits, some people run no heals, some people run no draws, some people run crits and stands, but I prefer this. From my testing with Mr. Cardo Takudesu, this trigger lineup seemed to work the best. So yeah, let's chat for difference of skill, and bye!